All right, so at this point we've done everything except for the arms. Again, I'm only going to do one of my arms. You guys, of course, will do both, but once I do one arm, you'll pretty much just repeat the same process for the other arm. So with Max here, what I'm going to do is turn on his right arm, and we're going to focus on this one. Now, I actually finished this run and jump over the weekend, and I noticed an issue that came up with this arm. And I actually did, and I didn't do this intentionally, but I did reach gimbal lock, and so the arm kind of flips out a little bit. With this, it's a little more subtle, but it happens here in the beginning. So it's really fast, but if you see, it kind of jitters around, right around in here. And that's because the values right around in here in the graph editor, let me actually just select that arm. They kind of reach an extreme flip here, going from 10 to 20, and then they flip again here on 25. And it's creating this weird kind of jitter movement in the arm. Now, usually this is something we could fix fairly easily using the Euler filter, which we haven't looked at yet. So when you do your in-betweens, or when you flatten your curves, if you do notice that your arm hits gimbal lock, usually it's a little more noticeable than this. And what happens is your arm will probably do like a complete flip, or it looks like the arm's doing sort of like a windmill pattern. And what we could do to fix it in most cases is if you select the controller, so in this case I'll select that arm there, I'll zoom out and marquee drag and select all these keys or tangents here for this arm. And then under curves, where is it? I know it's in here somewhere. There it is. There's the Euler filter. Now it looks like Euler. It's pronounced Euler. This will actually look for extreme differences in your values. So, if we have flips happening in your rotations, for example, most of the time this will fix this. Now with mine, the shift is so subtle. When I use the Euler filter, it actually doesn't work to clean up my animation, but this is the first thing I would do or try if I notice that I have that issue in the arm. But with mine, I'm going to have to do a little bit of cleanup here in my extreme poses. So I'm actually going to have to reset them to make sure that I'm not getting that sort of gimbal lock and that erratic sort of movement in the arm. Now, before I do move on to the upper arm itself, I want to do something similar to what I did with the neck and head. So I don't want to get distracted by the elbow and the wrist as I start to clean up this arm. So I am going to go to the first pose here, or frame 0, and then I'm going to select the elbow here, and let's right click up here and mute this. Let's hit mute all. And the same thing in the wrist here. I'm going to grab that wrist, right click in the channel box, and let's hit mute all. And then before I touch this arm controller, I do want to clean the clavicle real quick. So I'm going to come in here and delete anything that I know isn't going to be animated. So that should be all the translations. I'm just going to grab those and delete them. I'm going to grab the rotate X, hit F to set it to frame this, and that looks pretty good. Let's go to our Y and clean this up. And really it's just this one here. And then my Z. Alright, so that looks good. And then let's move to the arm controller here. And again, I'm going to delete anything I know I'm not going to use. So this stretch, SS amount, and free orient, I'm just going to get rid of it. I also know that I'm not going to animate the translation in this arm controller. So let's just immediately grab those and delete those. And then I'm going to come through, and I'm not actually going to bother to clean this up yet because I know I need to reset the poses for this arm, again, to avoid any sort of gimbal lock. Now, really the best way to clean this up, if we do have gimbal lock and the Euler filter isn't working, it's just going to be to reset or look for my extreme poses and rekey them. And so I'm going to go back to my reference, and then I'm also going to look at my blocking passes. So hopefully you've typed these out and you have these on hand. And so our first extreme is going to be our first key there on 0. So this one should be fine. Really what I'm doing is I'm looking at the rotation values, and as long as our arms aren't really lifting up above our head, if the arm comes forward, really it should only be coming forward about 90 degrees and then negative 90 degrees behind us. If we're getting really extreme values in here where we're maybe exceeding 180 degrees, and even 180 degrees might be a bit much for that rotation, but if we go beyond 180, we know we're definitely rotating the arm probably more than it would naturally go. And if we get up into the 360s, we're obviously going to be doing flips with our arms. So we want to keep an eye on these rotation values as we reset these poses, and we just want to make sure that we aren't hitting gimbal lock again. So I'm going to go through here, and on pose 0, I think it's actually fine. So I'm going to stick with this pose. And surely I didn't mess this up here on frame 10. It's just rotating backwards. And I'm looking at those values there for the rotate X, Y, and Z. And there's not really an extreme change here from 0 to 10. So I think those are okay. Let's look at the next extreme. So that's going to be, I think, the contact here. Let's see what that arm does. So I don't really have a huge difference in the arm position here on that contact. What is that, on 20? It goes backwards on 10, and then from 10 to 20 it goes forwards by a very subtle amount. So let's set that up. So I'm going to go to frame 20. I'm going to grab this arm here and I'm going to zero out the rotations in the channel box, and we're just going to repose this. Matching our reference. And again, we're going to have to sort of ignore the elbow and the wrist because we muted their animation, so they're going to maintain sort of a similar stiff pose throughout. And so let's just bring this forward, and let's key select just the rotate XYZ here on our extreme on 20. And then I'm going to scrub through my timeline and make sure that transitions nicely. So that looks all right. Let's look for the next pose here, or the next extreme. And really, what I'm looking for, if my arm on 20 is going forwards as far as it does, and then stops, I'm going to keep going until we get the next extreme, which is behind us. So that arm swings back here. And it looks like it does it on 26. So I could delete all the keys between 20 and 26 if I have them, and then just make 26 my extreme there. So let's see. So it looks like I actually don't have any keys in between, so let's just go to frame 26. I'm going to delete these here on 25. I'm just going to grab those and delete them. And then I'm going to come in and reset this arm on frame 26, and again I'm going to rotate it down, and let's see, it comes back here. So let's bring that arm back, and let's go ahead and grab all three of those and key select those there on frame 26. And again I'm going to scrub through, make sure that's all right. So that's good. And then let's look for our next extreme. So our current extreme is 26, and now I'm looking for the point in time at which these arms are the furthest forward, and it looks like that extreme happens here. I mean, we could honestly probably do either frame 35 or 39. I'm going to do frame 35. So I'm going to delete anything between 26 and 35. There's already a key there on 36. I'm actually just going to make it 36. So I'm going to grab those keys between 26 and 36 and delete them. And then on frame 36, I'm going to try to match this pose again. But what we need to do is take this controller and zero it out. And then let's bring it in and up. That might be too much. And with that set up, I'm actually bring it down to the hair. We can grab these and key those. And let's look at that transition. And then I set that extreme. Now I want to build in an in-between pose here between 26 and 36. The reason why is I don't really like that arc that's happening. So if I look from the top down and really watch that arm, it flings out to the side. And if I look at my reference, it's kind of hard to tell because I don't have a front camera. But those arms don't really spread apart from the body that far through that part of the jump. It actually doesn't happen until the landing here. My arms kind of fly apart and then come inwards. So I'm going to try to find a pose between 36 and, what did I say, 26. So maybe 32. Let's see. And let's set this. So I'm going to zero these out. And let's try to match that pose with the arm. Bring that down and forward. Probably bring that forwards a little more. And then let's key this. Let's go back to 26. Alright, and let's see. And then our next extreme. So it actually kind of continues up here to 39. Probably not as extreme as I have it here. I'm actually going to copy the pose there on 36. And we're going to paste it here to 39. And I might raise it up ever so slightly just so we get a little bit of difference here. And then my next extreme here is going to be when these swing. These actually continue back a little bit here on the contact on 46. So let's bring these back. Just key select that. And then the next extreme is when they come forward here on 58. So they kind of almost smack together there. So I'm going to delete any key between 46 and 58. And then let's try to match that pose. So I'm going to zero this arm out. And I'm going to rotate that in. Like so. And then we'll key select that. And then let's look for the next extreme. So it's probably going to be, let's call it the contact here on 61. And it looks like that pose is okay. It looks like it should actually be good for the rest of the animation. I think the only thing I don't like is it might swing just a little bit too forward here on 76 for that contact. Let me check it. Yeah, I'm going to bring it down just a little bit. Oh, I don't like that snap there at the end either. So I'm going to redo this pose here on 88. We'll zero that out. Actually, let me just grab the key on 82 and copy that. And then paste it to 88. And then we'll correct this pose. We'll just bring it back just slightly. Maybe rotate it in a little bit, and then let's key select that. And that movement should be less jarring there at the end. Let's see, and it almost looks like we could use another pose somewhere right around in here, probably frame 53. Let's see what's happening there. I'm going to look for the moment where these arms are the furthest spread apart. And it looks like that actually happens probably around frame 50. And I'm going to take this arm and zero it out. And I'm going to bring it in a little bit here. And let's key this. Looks like I could use just a little rotation here in X. Alright, and let's play that back. Alright, and we've got the poses corrected. Now I just need to go through and clean up the curve. So I'm going to go in one attribute at a time and clean this up. Oop. Go through the Y here, do the same thing. Let's Good. And then the Z, let's come in here and clean this up. All right, that looks better. Okay, I want to push this pose a little bit here. Let's see. Yeah, I think that'll be all right. All right, so that's the upper arm. Now I'm going to grab the elbow, and with that selected over here in the channel box, we'll unmute all. And then we'll go through and check these poses. Now, we do need to delete any unused attributes in the elbow. So in here, I'm going to delete out the stretch and SS them out. With the elbow, I typically will not, let me grab it and let's bring up the rotation here. I usually, most of the movement in the elbow is going to come from this backwards and forwards movement in the rotate Y axis. You generally speaking, unless we're going for some really exaggerated animation, we're not going to break the elbow in the Z axis going side to side like this, because that would be a really unnatural movement. So I'm going to immediately just come in and take the rotate Z and delete it. And then the X, you know, you do get a little bit of twist there in the forearm. So you could, if you wanted to, animate that, but I think to simplify things a little bit, I'm not. So I'm just going to grab the rotate X and delete that as well. And I'm going to try to keep all my rotation here in the Y. And again, I want to go through and maybe check my poses and make sure that this arm now is, or the forearm is kind of following what the upper arm is doing. And then we will come in and add overlap. And so I think for the most part, these poses should be pretty good for our animation. But if we wanted to, we could come in and maybe like on the contacts, we could push that forward position or bend in the elbow a little bit. So I'll key select that translate Y there, or rotate Y rather. And so I'm just going to scrub through and make sure the bend looks natural throughout my extremes. I might straighten it out a little bit here. And I've already got a key there. I could probably just take it and push it up. And we'll lessen the exaggeration there. So we've got a contact there on 61. I might bend this a little bit. Another contact. I think it's pretty bent there already, so that's probably all right. And then we go into a neutral pose here at the end, so that's fine. And then let's come in and start adding in our overlap. So the forearm looks like it's overlapping the upper arm. And so I'm going to go a few frames forward here. And again, as we're doing this, we're paying attention to what's happening in the upper arm. So it's going to be pretty similar to what we did with the walk cycle. So if that upper arm is going backwards, a few frames forward, we might have this elbow to continue moving forwards. So it overlaps that motion. And again, we do want to be careful with the exaggeration here. What I like to do is, so I'm on frame 4, I'm going to key select the rotate Y to put a key here on my tangent, or on my curve. And then I'm going to take this key and I'm going to push it up a little bit. Or I guess I'm pushing it down and then the elbow is moving forward. And then here on about frame 15, we could maybe build in some noodle arm. So on frame 15, I'm going to key select my rotate Y, and then I'm going to grab that key now, and let's see, We need to push that up to break the arm. And then we've got a contact here on 20. And a couple frames after, we could maybe continue this arm forward. So let's key select that and then bring this down a little bit here. And then that's really swinging forward here. Let's see, you're actually swinging backwards. We can maybe continue that through. Let's see. So maybe frame 29. Let's take this and break it. Let's have that continue backwards. I think on frame 58, I'm going to have this come in a little bit. So I'm going to take that key down. And that arm goes backwards here. So I'm going to go a couple frames forward. And on 64, we'll key select that. We'll take that key and continue that arm movement forward. And then after 68, that upper arm goes forwards. And so we could maybe key select that just a couple frames forward and grab that key and break the arm. Now there's going to be a steep change in value from 72 to 76. So I might reduce the exaggeration on this and on both keys. So I'm going to take that and push it down. I'm going to take this one and push it up. And then let's clean up this curve real quick, and we'll see what that looks like. Yeah, so it kind of pops here at the end. I think those extremes are too much still, so I'm going to take this key and push it way down. Let's take this one and push it up. I really don't like that arm here. So I'm just trying to make that movement a little more subtle. By reducing the amount of movement in the extremes there. And then let's check the wrist now. And so we need to unmute that. Unmute all. This one, let's see. I'm really only going to animate in, I think, Z and Y. Let me take the rotate X. I'm going to delete this and set that to 0 and see if that really messes up my animation. I don't think so. See, I don't need rotate X on that. And now let's check these poses for overlap. And again, we want it to overlap what the forearm is doing now. And so on that extreme there on 10, if that elbow's coming backwards, or that forearm, this should actually be going forward a little bit more. And Y. So let's key select that. And it looks like the overlap's already working there on 20. So that forearm's coming forwards. So that wrist should have been backwards. Might reduce the amount of exaggeration there on that. And then on 25, it looks like that arm swings backwards. So we can have that wrist come forwards. So it looks like the overlap was actually built in pretty well on this one for the most part, because now that arm's going forwards, that wrist should be coming backwards. And I think on 36 it would be nice if this swung out from the body a little bit there. And we'll continue in here. And let's see, on 53, I'm going to take this key up. Have that hand kind of tilt outwards. I'm going to take this key here and delete it so we get a smoother transition. And I just want to scrub through this to make sure it looks all right. And then here on 58, it looks like that arm is coming forward, so this wrist should be going backwards. So I'm going to continue that. And then it looks like on 68, that arm starts to come back. So I want to bring that wrist forward. I'm actually going to take this key here on 61. I'm going to delete that for a smoother transition. I'm going to take this key and flatten it. And then let's go to 68, and let's take this key and I guess we're going to push it down further here to bring that forward. And then here on 76, let's bend it back. We'll probably even exaggerate that a little more. And then on 82, let's bring it forwards. And on 88, I'm going to bring that back. Actually. And we'll fix that overlap at the end here. in just a second. So I'm just going to check the overlap on the wrist. It needs it a little in the Z-axis, especially when we start to raise the hand up here. So I'm going to grab that wrist, grab my rotate Z, and it looks like it's built in for the most part. So here when that arm starts to swing up, and I might actually start this earlier, let's see. I'm going to delete that key there on 31. And as that arm comes up, I want the wrist to trail behind, so that's already working. 39 there. I'm just going to pull that key up a little bit. And then I'm going to delete these two keys here between that extreme there, so on 39 and then our landing here on 49. I'm just going to take these keys and delete them. And then as our body comes down and we're moving forward, those arms or those wrists should come backwards. So that's good. And then I want them to come, let's see. So our arm's swinging inwards, and I'd like to drag that wrist behind a little bit there. So I'm actually going to take that key on 58 and pull it down. Let's grab this one here and just delete it. And then on 61, as those arms start to pull away from center, let's have that wrist come inwards to drag behind. I'm going to lessen the exaggeration here. Actually, I'm going to see if we can delete this key. And I'm just going to put hold on this one. Let's break that tangent, and let's pull this out. And I want this in a more relaxed pose here on 82. Let's bring that up. And feels a little stiff here at the end. Oh, let's undo that. I think this holds for too long. Let's see. And then, just so it doesn't end so abruptly, I'm going to give myself 95 frames. And let's see. I'm going to have a little bit of a settle in here where the arm comes slightly forward again. Same thing with the elbow. And then the wrist will bring forward a little bit. And maybe the same thing with the root. So I'm going to take this key here on the root for translate X, and we're actually going to copy that. Let's see, let's just go to frame 92. I'm going to key select that. I'm going to come back to 88, and let's take that key that's there, and let's actually make the root go a little further forward. Oh. So I need to push that up. That's going to be way too much. Let me hit F. So we're just going to overshoot that pose a little bit there. And again, that's still way too much. So we want this to be subtle. There. And then so we just get a little bit of settle in there. And so yeah, we don't want everything to end at the same time, so we'll have the body sort of overshoot a little bit, and the wrist and arm as well. So I could keep working on this. There's still a little bit of issue here with the overlap in the wrist, especially at the end, and I would want to spend a little more time cleaning that up, but I don't want to spend all class working on this, so I will stop here, and then the rest of class day will be work day today and Friday. Again, your run and jumps are due Monday, and you will turn in your entire Maya project folder with your final scene file, and then I would also like a rendered video, and you only have to render what you've animated. So in my case, I've got 95 frames here, and I would render it from my main camera. So you'll set your camera up and just make sure you render from the camera that you set up when we started this animation. So I will stop here, and the rest of class day again will be work day.